We thank you for watching Sports Close Up. I'm Jim Berger, and this week I'm joined by Bill Ross, the new Interim Athletic Director at Allegheny College. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Here at the Robertson Athletic Complex at Allegheny, a lot of exciting stuff is coming down the road, and I'm sure we will touch on that in a little bit. But first, I guess, Bill, longtime track and field coach, first at Teal, then at Allegheny, elevated to the Associate Athletic Director role in 2010, and now here you are as the Interim Athletic Director. I guess we'll start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what brought you into coaching, what brought you to Allegheny, and I guess what kept you at Allegheny.
Sure. Well, my journey started back at Slippery Rock University back in 1980. I was played football, was on the track team at that time, and then really found my niche in the sport of track and field as a hammer thrower. And so after my collegiate season was over, had some aspirations of making it onto the Olympic team, and so went into that full-time training mode, and so that's kind of how I got my start, kind of on that level. And then just so happened that the vice president of Teal College was one of my clients at a wellness center where I was working, and asked me if I'd be interested in getting involved in coaching.
Oh.
And so that's how I got into the coaching realm. And so was the crazy as it sounds, I was the head track coach, assistant football coach, and sports information director.
Oh.
Back then, that's what you did. You wore many, many hats.
Wow. I mean, I know as a sports information director now, there's not enough time in a day. I couldn't imagine doing it in season, all season. Holy cow.
No.
So then you were at Teal for a few years, had a lot of success there. You pretty much built the program from the ground up as well, and turned out having a couple national qualifiers, a couple conference champions. How did that progression go?
Yeah, it was difficult. Didn't have a track when we were there, so ran an awful lot in the Pass Event Center, which is their big auditorium. Did a lot of sprints up and down the hallways. But we were fortunate enough to have some really talented athletes that were hungry to try to achieve as much as they possibly could, and just really didn't let them focus on what we didn't have, because we certainly had the talent. And so we were able to win some championships, get some national qualifiers, get some All-Americans, a couple of national champions while I was there. So it was a good run. It was a short run. It was only 7 years, but it was good.
A successful one.
Yep.
And then after those 7 years, as you said, you came here at Allegheny. I guess what drew you here to Allegheny, and you know, were you ready to make the move, or did you just kind of see what else you wanted to see what else is out there? Or?
Yeah. Well, when I started at Teal in 1990, that was obviously the year that the football championship was won here. So everybody knew about Allegheny because of that win, and so Allegheny was one of those destination institutions. It's like, boy, if you could get a job at Allegheny College, you're set, you're golden. And so a friend of mine at the time was Jack Leipheimer. We kind of knew each other through football, and so when the position came open, Jack got in contact with me and wondered if I would be interested in applying for it, and the rest was history.
It's almost like you traded places with Leipheimer.
Yeah. Then a few years later, then Jack leaves and goes to be the head football coach at Teal.
Yep. So Allegheny, you come here 1996, have some immediate success. You built the program, and again, I know you've said it a few times, you didn't have the track at Teal. You didn't have much of a facility here at Allegheny either. How did you guys overcome that and eventually become, one of the top track and field and cross country programs, not just in the conference but nationally?
Yeah, again, it was just blessed with the right student athletes to be working with, and just had that attitude of, we're just not going to let anything get in our way, not going to let anything get us down. Would not let our student athletes focus on the fact that we did not have an all-weather track. When we went to a meet, we really built up on the fact, like, just imagine how much faster you're going to run once you get on that all-weather track. Just focus in on the positives of what you're about to accomplish. instead of focusing in on the negatives.
And then here at Allegheny, you had a lot of success. Talking about overcoming that I really like how you said that. Think about what we will do when we will go to a place like that. Was it hard to find or hard to convince the student athletes to do that, or was it easy for them to buy in?
It was difficult. Again, we still had the Meadville weather to contend with, and a rainy day on a cinder track is a lot worse than it is on a rainy day on an all-weather track.
Right.
So it was difficult, but I think overall the whole athletic department, coaches and student athletes, really had that sense of pride and just not letting anything get us down. We really, when we walked into a facility, it was like, hey, we're here. You can all pay attention. type of an attitude. So that was really a positive that we had going on. That really helped us out as well.
Yeah, a little chip on the shoulder.
Oh yeah. But nice chip on the shoulder. Not bad to have that.
No, it isn't. And so talking about, like we said, the facilities and overcoming that, I know working with you for the past few years in your role as an admin, you've told a lot of coaches that, hey, this is what we did without a track. Look how successful we are. Is that something you've been trying to convey to the coaches now? Do you think it's harder now for them to do that, easier now, or does it just come down to finding the right student athlete?
Well, yeah, obviously it's a combination of both, and that's one thing that I'm looking forward to now in this role as interim AD is helping our coaches maybe tweak something in their recruiting. I have not had that opportunity in the associate role to kind of work with them on what they're doing in the recruiting process. In regards to the facilities, we have everything in place that you would want.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we have a grass baseball field where a lot of the opponents in our conference have turf now, but like I said, you can't focus on that. We have a field.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you don't have one.
It's not a bad place.
And it's not a bad place. You're right. It's a really nice grass field. So quit focusing on the things that we don't have and really focus on what we do have. And what we do have are outstanding young men and women to work with and our student athletes. And so I think it's just again, looking forward to working with them on maybe redirecting their thought process. Not that they're bad in their thought process right now, but redirecting them just a little bit and focusing on taking ownership of their programs. And again, one of the key things to think about is if this was your business, if you owned this sports team, is this how you would be working? If not, then change it.
I really like that.
Because you would fail as a businessman or woman if you worked a certain way.
Right.
You've got to make sure that is a successful business venture. So take that ownership and take that approach.
I really like that. Well, talking about successful business ventures, your time here as track and field coach, star-studded 27-time NCAC Coach of the Year, I believe, 30 or 31 NCAC team championships between cross country and track and field. I'm sure you had chances or opportunities or heard some rumblings to maybe go elsewhere once you started, pumping out national qualifiers, national champions. What kept you here at Allegheny?
It boils down to the people you get to work with. You get to work with great people like you. You get to work with great student athletes, administration, right on down the line. Allegheny is a great employer, and that certainly helps to keep you there. Also, about that time that things were going very well with us, I had sons coming out of the high school system and looking for a place to run, and they were fortunate enough. I guess I was fortunate enough to have them choose Allegheny and run for me.
What was that recruiting process like? Was it tough to sell them?
There was no sales pitch whatsoever. None whatsoever. It was their personal choice. And again, like my son Zach had a lot of success at Meadville High School in cross country and track and on the state level, and so he was being highly recruited, but just one of those things where he felt really at home at Allegheny, That's one, again, the nice thing about what keeps me here, the nice thing about it is my kids get to grow up on this campus and they get to hang out with these student athletes. There's not a better influence that I can think of in helping to raise your children. So that also helped to keep me here.
Now, when you landed someone like that, like your son, like you said, had a very good pedigree in high school, known throughout the state. When you land someone like that, does that kind of open a door for some other, elite-ish athletes who say, "Oh, wow, well, he's going to Allegheny? They must be pretty good."
Yeah, it does. In 2006, when we finished third at the cross-country championships on the men's side, that was kind of my sales pitch with the incoming recruiting class would have been the fall of 2007, that if you guys come, this is what we can do. Because there was a really nice, as you said, pedigree just sitting around that recruiting table. So when you think back, that was Zach, that was Tony Dupre, Jeremy Parker, Chris Marker, all those guys. There's an awful lot of All-Americans in that group.
Yep.
And it's funny enough is that when we finished third at that race, all of those recruits were calling us and saying, "Oh my gosh, you guys did it without us." But
imagine if you were here.
Yeah, exactly. I say maybe we would have won. But then they were able to just take that momentum and just carry it on. I mean, they never finished out of the top 5 or 6 at the national championships from there on out, finishing third again in 2009.
So it's interesting. You were a thrower throughout your college career. You came here. Of course, you've had a very successful throwing program, but the cross country and the distance is what really propelled Allegheny to the top. Was it tough, going from your expertise in throwing into the head coaching role where you had to kind of oversee everything? And then again, it sounded like you had a very specific focus with the distance runners.
Yeah, I mean, being the head track coach at Teal, I had distance runners that I was responsible for there. And again, not knowing much about it, I am a scientist by trade, in my degrees, and so because distance running is such a scientifically based discipline, it was easy to find the experts and then just learn off of them and get their philosophy and develop my own philosophy on training distance runners. And it took some time. There was a lot of tweaking in there, a lot of other discussions, seeking out other experts in the field. But my philosophy in coming up with the training program for them was prove to me that this is the way that it should be done scientifically, not just because that's the way your coach did it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what helped us.
I like that.
Yep.
You mentioned a lot of the athletes that you had here went on to All-American careers. Tony Dupre, Chris Marker. On the women's side, Liz Early, Amy Schuckert. The one that stands out, and I'm sure you'll be happy to talk about him, is Jeremy Scott. Probably one of the best athletes in Division III history. Multiple All-American in the pole vault. Went on to the Olympics in the pole vault. What was it like coaching Jeremy? And I mean, what did you learn from him, I guess? What did he learn from you? And how was that experience?
Yeah, it was an interesting story because I'm just sitting in my office, and this was, what was it, like September? And knock on the door, and there's this tall drink of water standing there and say, "Hey, coach, I'd like to come out for the track team. I'm here, I'm on the football team, and I'd like to come out for track." And I'm thinking high jumper right away, like, being that tall. So when he told me that he was a pole vaulter, that was like, oh boy, I've got my work cut out for me. Most pole vaulters are not that tall, not even close.
Probably what, 6'10", 6'11", right?
Yeah, 6'10". So it's like, boy, how are we going to do this? So, again, working the circuit and trying to find coaches that have worked with tall pole vaulters before, we came across Earl Bell down in Arkansas, former Olympian. He himself very tall, and kind of knows the biomechanics behind all that. I mean, the leverage system is just totally different with someone that tall, and what you're trying to achieve out of that pole. And so,
and the poles too. I mean, that's not a standard pole. I'm sure it was a heck of a time finding one for him.
Oh yeah, Yeah, they had Gill Athletics had to custom make a kiln in order to create his poles because no one in the world had poles that long.
Wow.
I mean, his nickname is El Grande.
Yeah.
No pole vaulter in the world is that tall, and that's what he was nicknamed that by the other pole vaulters internationally. But yeah, it was, so we got to work with Earl Bell. Any opportunity Jeremy had to go down to a camp over the summer, over Christmas break, things like that, he would go, pay for it, do his own thing, and work with Earl during that time. So a lot of his success was due to Jeremy's willingness to do a lot of that on his own.
And he really saw the benefits. NCAA all-division record, I believe, in the pole vault while you coached him. I mean, that was huge. And he, to this day, I believe he's still kind of competitive. He's still competing a little bit, from what I'm seeing.
He's now on the camp and lecture circuit.
Okay. And he was inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame last year.
Yeah. So I think he's officially retired from competition, but he came to Allegheny College because he wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. That was his goal when he was in high school, and now, how many years later?
14.
14 years later, after he's graduated from college, he is now in medical school to be an orthopedic surgeon.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
It really is. And again, it talks about the kids that you get to coach, you get to work with here at Allegheny.
Yep.
So you had all the success with track and field throughout the 90s, throughout the 2000s. Did you think about wanting to jump into administration? How did that opportunity come up, and which you accepted in the summer of 2010? How did that all lead to it? Was it a goal of yours? Did you just kind of stumble into it? How did that work out?
Yeah, strangely enough, I don't mind committee meetings. I don't mind some of the paperwork and putting together proposals and all of that. So that really appealed to me. So when I was coaching, any opportunities to get on a search committee, I was on the Title IX committee. I mean, I was always the first to raise my hand. I'll do it. Love to do it. And my love for in doing that. And again, it kind of sounds corny, but it's for the good of everyone. If you can come up with policies and procedures and finding the right coaches and whatnot, so it benefits everybody. Like I said, it was just something that I fell in love with, and that aspect of it, and was recognized for that when the associate position came open, and our athletic director at the time, Betsy Mitchell, approached me about applying for the job, and rest is history.
It is. Was it tough to get out of coaching and make that transition? Or did it help a little bit because you were still here? You could probably still, mentor the track and field coach, cross country coach while you were here.
It was a struggle making that decision because we had just finished third in the country, so I'm at the peak of my coaching career. And my son had one more year left. So it was actually his decision. He was the one. I approached him and I said, if you don't want me to take this, I won't, because something else hopefully will come up. And, if you want me sticking around for one more year, he was like, I got this, Dad.
Well, that's good.
So.
That's good. So we owe it to him that
yes,
you are here
exactly.
in this position. In your role as associate AD, I know people at the school understand all the stuff that you do. Facilities, I know you did a lot of scheduling, the committee meetings and all that. Take us through a typical day in the life of an associate AD at Allegheny, because I'm sure it differs for the viewers out there. I'm sure there's a lot out there who may be interested in hearing what an associate AD does and how specialized that is in a department. Yeah,
and again, my role, the things that I was responsible for in my role as associate, probably the number one was dealing with the facilities. So we've got all of Robertson, we have the Y Center, so there's always things that are going on. You're working closely with physical plant, housekeeping, outside vendors, making sure that that everything is kept up and improved, planning for new facilities, all that stuff. So that took up a big chunk of time. The rest of it was working directly with students, with the club sports, intramurals, the employees that work within the athletic department in the Y Center, And then obviously there's, like, as you well know, there's no rest for the weary once the school starts.
Right.
I mean, there's always a contest to be had somewhere.
Right.
So
and there's always something little that crops up. Hey, the scoreboard's not working.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, the internet's out in the building.
Yes.
What are we gonna?
Yeah. So again, there was dabbling in that with the game day management and making sure that everything is all set and ready to go with that. So that's my day job. Or I should say my Monday through Friday job was working with facilities, making sure that everything is ready for the weekend, and then also working with the students and keeping everybody working and happy and doing what they need to do with their programming. There's also a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of meetings thrown in there. You're working with student life, you're working with residence life, you're working with development, your admissions, you're just there's all kinds of meetings with that. So then your weekend is spent making sure an event goes off smoothly.
Yep. Now we see a lot, the sports management major is very popular in a lot of institutions, and it seems like a lot of students will go into that looking to just become an AD or go right into the sports administration field. It happens, of course, but how did it help you as going from coaching into administrating? How was, being a head coach help you in your career as an administrator?
Yeah, I think because of the nature of the sports that I was a head coach of helped me out an awful lot with that. I mean, being the head coach of literally 6 sports.
Yeah.
You got men and women's cross country, men and women's indoor track, and men and women's outdoor track. Yes, it's a lot of the same athletes, but it's 3 different seasons and 3 different approaches and nuances and planning and everything else that needs to take place. And if you, as I explained to a friend of mine one time when I took him to a track meet down in North Carolina, the very first track meet he ever saw, and trying to make heads of where the race was and who was warming up and why is this person jumping in sand and all that. It is a 3-ring circus.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You've sat up there during the the NCAC championships and the Gator Invite. You see what it's like. It's just nonstop action, and you've got to have good organizational skills. Not only in running that type of an event, but making sure that your athletes are well prepared and everything's timed up and whatnot. So I think that really helped me out an awful lot with the 3-ring circus that can be found in administration.
Yeah, and I'm sure also the background that you spoke of earlier at Teal, wearing 3 or 4 hats at once, I'm sure that prepared you as well to multitask. I was an SID and a coach of 2 sports at the same time. I can do this. I can schedule the Y Center for someone.
Don't let that scare you, Jimmy. I still believe you work hard.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So the associate AD since 2010, did a lot of cool things over those last 8 years facility-wise. A lot of new signage around here, a new surface at the stadium, pretty much a brand new weight room, brand new cardio room, etc., etc. What were some of your most proudest accomplishments in your tenure as an associate leading up to your position now?
Well, I think before I became an associate, I was blessed to be involved with the project of putting in the turf field in the stadium and the track. That was an awesome experience, and Larry Lee was the athletic director at the time, so he brought me in as the kind of the resident expert on dealing with these vendors and went to all the meetings and made sure that we did it right. And even today, other than the fact that we had a little issue with our turf field and had to replace it a couple of years early, really the track is in great shape. The work that was done underneath the foundation to lay that down, to put those surfaces, that's the most important part. So I learned an awful lot about what it's like in putting in a facility like that. So that really helped out an awful lot. So I would say that's probably my proudest accomplishment was working with that. The other one is the weight room renovation. When you are limited on space,
right?
You're not knocking down walls. You can't do that. Right. You can't add any more space.
You got to be very creative.
You got to be very creative on what you can do within that certain space. And we were able to create a much more workable, viable weight room especially for our student athletes, as well as the general student population. So that was another big accomplishment.
And then on top of that, Allegheny was able to secure the peak performance director position. I'm sure that helps you out as well. If you could explain to the viewers, what is that position and how much has it meant to the department to actually have someone on hand to pretty much does nothing but the strength and conditioning and the managing the weight room and everything.
Yeah, well, and actually his role is going to be increased a little bit because of me moving into this role. So he's going to assume a lot of the responsibilities that I had within the WISE Center. So Bayou Pernomo is our director of peak performance right now.
I'm glad I'm on good terms with him. That's good to know.
Yep. So he is, he's a great young man, very, very eager, loves his job, does a great job at it, works very well with the coaches. And again, you got to have somebody that can work with the head coaches on their philosophy behind training, because everyone has kind of their way of doing it. If most of us have never had the privilege of working with the strength and conditioning coach, so you have to develop that philosophy yourself on how you're going to strengthen and condition your athletes, off seasons and all that stuff. So, so working with the head coaches and making sure that kind of your beliefs, your philosophy, that he will follow, but have suggestions for change for the better. And he does a great job with that, and all the coaches love him and work well with him.
And some coaches have an ego. Why are you telling me what I've been doing for 20 years is wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure that's a battle he has to overcome.
Yep.
So 22 years into your tenure at Allegheny, you're named the interim athletic director. Looking back on it, is it a crowning achievement? Do you take a deep breath and say, finally I'm here? Or, how was it when you were officially offered that position? So I'm sure things happened kind of quickly.
It did. It happened very quickly.
With the resignation of Portia to take the job in Tennessee.
Yeah. It happened rather quickly. But it was, more than happy to take on that role, especially in an interim period. It's going to be an extended period of time. Very excited about that. It's not like I am looking to make wholesale changes or anything. I don't even know whether I have the okay to do that.
So I'm not getting fired anytime soon.
I'm not going to be firing you today. So, but I know I think internally there's some things that we can improve upon that we're going to be implementing that I think will help with our efficiency within the department, how things are run, and then I think just. Really, I see my role as being a huge support to the coaches and what they're doing, obviously to the student athletes and what they're trying to achieve, I'm here for all the alums as well, the alumni relations. I sent out the letter to all of our alums and the solicitation letter for our Golden Gator Club, and kind of the theme behind that is that you can trust that I am Allegheny, and we have that slogan, "We are Allegheny." I am a part of that. I am Allegheny. I've been here long enough. My children grew up on this campus. My children attended this institution. I have had success here at the college. And so it's easy for me to say that I am Allegheny College, and asking everyone to kind of come in and help me, keep pushing this thing forward and improving as much as we can within however length of time this interim role lasts.
And again, knowing the coaching staff, they know your background. They know you were a very successful coach, very visible with the administrative part. That had to be pretty, I believe that would be a pretty welcomed announcement by the coaching staff that you were named the interim. And again, I think that it helps, seeing your background, it helps them to kind of buy in a lot quicker. Would you agree with that?
You mean everyone's not afraid that I'm the athletic
director? I don't
director?
think so.
Okay.
Not the rumblings that I've heard. That's not what I've heard.
No, I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope that they're looking at it in that way. And again, I've not had a chance to have a our department meeting yet,
Right.
and kind of go over what my expectations are. But I touched on it earlier. You know, it's going to be about supporting them and them taking ownership of their programs.
And knowing you for the last 5 years, I know, and hearing your background, I know how important you take, you know, not just the paper pushing and not just the administrative part, but you're really interested in being able to lead, being able to mentor. I know that's always been something that you've been very passionate about. You know, how does that help you in this position as well? You know, how are you going to, you know, I know you've always had an open door policy in the office with coaches. You know, what are some things you're going to try to convey to some of the younger coaches, maybe as a leader, you know, some advice, et cetera, from their background?
Well, I think it's interesting. The AD and associate AD is very similar to head coach and assistant coach. The assistant coach, the athletes go to to talk about things that might be going on in the team dynamics that they're not so sure that they want to approach the head coach on. So, I hope that people will feel comfortable in coming to me, because I've had that as an associate. I was never an assistant coach except for being assistant football coach. So, and in the sport of track and field, I was always the head track coach. So I didn't really know what it was like being an assistant. And so being an associate in the last 8 years was really interesting, because I saw that dynamic play out. As I saw, oh, so that's what my assistants coaches were, the information they were getting. And
I was probably guilty of doing it with you as well. So,
and so, I hope that all the coaches will feel comfortable in approaching me. You know, they've been doing that. They have been coming to me with issues that, and again, a lot of times, it did need to go to the athletic director. You know, the athletic director had enough going on. They didn't, you know, it's something that we could deal on our own. Obviously, you want to make the athletic director aware, but hey, we got it. We solved it. Everything's good. But I'm hoping that the coaches will continue to come to me whenever they feel comfortable doing that.
Well, this is an exciting time at Allegheny for athletics. A lot of additions, a lot of big plans coming up in the very near future. I guess first off, Bill, the addition of 2 sports. First time sports have been added to Allegheny in almost 15 years, men's lacrosse, women's field hockey. How exciting is that for the school, and you know, how has that transition gone so far?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever witnessed this amount of excitement in all the years that I've been here. When you add a facility, or you hire on a great coach, a well-known coach, or whatever, everyone's happy, you know, for that particular sport. But does that really transition over to the whole department? But adding these 2 sports, everybody sees the benefit, and everyone is excited about it. And because we're adding those sports and adding facilities, we're going to be adding some support staff.
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's huge within a department, and going into this year, I think just everyone being just jacked up and ready to get after it. I think we hired 2 fantastic coaches, Valerie Lohr for our field hockey, Tommy Pearson for men's lacrosse. They're killing it right now in their recruiting. I mean, they basically signed on the dotted line and got their cell phones and got on the road, and you know, they're out there recruiting, and you know, their season is still a year away. But you know, they're doing a fantastic job, and so I think it, like I said, it, you know, because we added the sports, we had some some growing pains to have to go through. So we had to improve upon some facilities which are going to benefit all. So we put in a centralized equipment room underneath the stadium, which we did not have before. That's fantastic. We expanded our athletic training room,
and it looks fantastic.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy how much space that
long time coming, but we just couldn't when we didn't have, you know, the space. And again, it took some people with some imagination on how we can create more space in existing space, but we were able to do it, and it looks great. It's going to benefit everybody. The new turf field that we're going to put in.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yep.
The big addition.
Yeah, the new turf field and upgrading our grass soccer fields. That project's going to get started here soon. That new turf field is huge. I mean, there's not that many college campuses across the country that have 2 artificial turf fields. You know, they have, you know, like we do, the one main one in the stadium, and then a lot of grass fields. So that's going to help out an awful lot with all of our sports. Obviously, we are building it with the intentions of having it being the home for field hockey. We're having it for a potential home for women's lacrosse, men and women's soccer if they need it. You know, it won't have any football lines on it. So it's going to be...
That's also very unique. You don't see
exactly.
It's turf fields without football lines
Right.
on it, especially around here. So that'll be something cool to see.
Right.
We do have a picture of the new facility, and looking at it, I mean, it's going to be really state of the art. You talked about, you know, it's going to be brand new turf. You're going to have lights, and then right next to it is a state of the art brand new grass field as well, you know, for some of the teams who prefer to play on grass. And I hear that's also going to be, you know, a premier surface, one of the best surfaces around, and that'll be a game field as well.
Right. So we will sod the game field, and then we'll have a practice field right next to it, so parallel to that field, and that'll be just a seeded field. It'll take a little bit of time for all that to grow, but in the meanwhile, like I said, and if you think about just that sport of soccer, the fact that you're going to have a practice field, a beautiful sod game field, and a turf field, all right there within that complex. That's pretty phenomenal when you think of that.
And not only in benefiting the 2 new sports, but that takes a ton of pressure off of so many facilities here, because, you know, as it stands now, there are days where there will be a football practice and 2 soccer practices from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock on the turf, or you know, this grass field doesn't work, I got to get on the turf, but there's a football game, what do I do? I mean, talk about that, how much just the addition of these fields just takes the pressure off of everything and really enhances that student athlete experience.
Oh, most definitely, and especially with the added turf. Because of the weather we do get here in Meadville now and again, you know, sometimes it's hard to get on a grass field when we've had a lot of rain, especially if someone has been using it an awful lot. Our current practice field for soccer gets that way right around October 1st because they've been practicing on it a lot. There's no drainage. You know, you get the rain and it just turns the mud, and it's very difficult to practice. And the fact that we are going to have, you know, not only the turf field, but boy, you know, I didn't think of that till now as I was talking, that you know, even the practice field's going to have drainage, so that should stay nice from here on out. So, but yeah, those are some of the things that.
And then even in the spring, you know, baseball could take ground balls on a new turf field, or softball can take pop-ups on the football field. You know, that really helps. That really helps a ton. And
well, we've added men's lacrosse, so now we've had women's lacrosse who come rain or shine or feet of snow.
They're out there right after Christmas break too.
They're out there. They want to be out there, and we were plowing the field and getting that ready so they can practice. Again, it's a sport that needs to be practiced. You know, sort of like soccer. Yeah. You can't practice your plays if you can't have a full width of the field.
Outdoor field.
You don't have to have the whole length, but you have to have the full width. So, you know, now we're adding men's lacrosse. It's going to need the same thing. So yeah, these turf fields are going to really help out an awful lot with that and making sure that they can practice the way they need to practice.
Well, our time has flown. Jeff notified me that we were running out of time, actually, and you were worried you couldn't fill 45 minutes. But I guess close things out. Very exciting time at Allegheny. You're clearly very passionate about the future of this college. You know, what could you tell our viewers? What can we expect this year from the Gators with you in charge?
Well, I'm very hopeful that we're going to be able to see a few more wins than we had last year. That's my hope.
And that's the goal for
exactly. And
great goal.
You know, I'm not going to say that we're going to win championships. I think there's some teams that, should be in contention for, hopefully. But I just want to see a few more wins. I just want to see our coaches. I just want to see that fire in their eye. If it was lost, that can come back. If it was there, that's a little bit brighter. So that's my hope.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill. It's been a pleasure as always, and good luck this year in the transition. For Bill Ross, this is Jim Berger. Thank you for watching Sports Close Up here on Armstrong.